The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business, from $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters in Real Estate Marketing, Arter SEO.
Welcome to the #1 real estate podcast network and the Icons of Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Kat Timpson. Today, I'm joined by Brett Chotkevys, a real estate investor and founder of Platinum Resort Assisted Living. They're builders and operators of mansions for assisted living around the country. Brett, it's so good to have you here and to have you share your journey and insight with us. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome, Kat. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for getting my last name right.
I'm glad I practiced. Everyone will know that.
Yeah, you did, right?
So one of the most important things that I really like to go into is find out how people started just in the business of what they're doing. We have all sorts of people, investors, agents, brokers, but I know you're very specific in your niche. So will you tell me about how you got into it?
Yeah. So I started in 2011, jumping into real estate investing, I did house flipping. Spent about a decade building my house flipping company, got to flipping 100 houses, and then was looking for more. I wanted something that actually made a difference in the community. I wanted to combine doing real estate deals with that. And I saw the need for people to care for people at end of life and the opportunity there with the marketplace. And honestly, most deals just got harder and harder and harder. Apartments and multifamily and single family and everything, right? But there's all these baby boomers that are coming into the marketplace and they need somewhere to go. And it just seemed like a huge problem to solve and therefore opportunity because, you go and you see pretty much everyone has experience with family going into big facilities and how horrible they are. And it's like, man, I know I can do better than that, right? Like I'm not a healthcare person. I'm a real estate guy and I can build things and I can raise money. I'm sure I can partner with someone to figure out the rest of this kind of thing. And so I just kind of fumbled through it until I got it right and really kind of started thinking I would do this RAL method. And that's residential assisted living, right? You buy a house, you convert it, all that kind of stuff until I put the pencil to paper and looked at all the numbers. And I'm like, oh, I think on my best month, I maybe make $5,000 and every other month I break even.
Yeah,
I guess I need to figure out something else on a way to do this.
And so what really came about? I mean, did you start doing it yourself? Tell us about like what it really looks like, because it's such an interesting concept. I don't know if everybody understands that it's a bigger picture and you're really at the forefront of something that no one else seems to be doing as much of.
Yeah, and to add to that, I really see there's kind of two sides to it, right? There's the big facilities and the 60 beds, 100 beds, and they're all over the country, right? And there's a lot of big corporate and big money that are building these things. Even in my city, they've built like 5 4-story buildings in the last 5 years, and they're 60% occupied because nobody wants to be in that place. That product is kind of obsolete. And so that's on the one side. The other side is you see a lot of people coming in building these or not building, they're converting houses, right? They're doing 6 beds and 8 beds, a little mom and pop kind of little businesses there.
Yeah.
And I was seeing that and I'm like, man, maybe I can look into that. And I was educating myself on it. I'm like, I don't think that's really my really solution. And it was kind of just trial and error until I figure out something. And I call them, the mansions, right? Assisted living mansions. That's what we build. And it's kind of a sweet spot in between. We offer all of the care and amenities that you could get at a big smelly facility, but we do it in a purpose-built, custom, gorgeous mansion. And we build 10,000 square foot. There are 16 private rooms. They all have a private bath. We have a chef. We have a salon. We have a library, a garden room. Wow. We have, we have dementia care. We have nurses. We have everything that you can get and really take care of people. And our niche is really kind of end of life, right? Past the independent living and then past the next stage of kind of like you're fine, but you need a little assistance when you get to your 90s and stuff like that, and it's really getting close to the end. Those last few years is where we take care of people.
But what a wonderful way to live out your amazing years, not feeling like you've been pushed aside or that you have to live in any different way than you probably lived through a lot of your life. And you have a community, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful to be able to provide this kind of stuff and help people in that way.
Yeah. So where did you start? I think I had read a little bit. You're in Texas, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just north of Austin. And so my real estate company was in California and I was investing there. And like many good Californians, took the first opportunity to leave and went to the great state of Texas and decided to continue my journey here. And so we opened our first assisted living right before COVID here in a city called Georgetown, just north of Austin, and are finishing up building our neighborhood of mansions now. And so we bought 8 acres and we're building out 4 of these 10,000 square foot mansions. Two of them we're doing right now in phase 1, and then we'll be able to come back in a couple of years, cash out, refinance, do the next set of these guys. And so it's my wife and I, and we run those. We have our team on the operations company side, and we do that. But the other aspect to our business is we co-invest with people all over the country to build these mansions, and they literally use our same building plans and operation systems and blueprints and pretty much copy and paste this model in all different markets.
That's the fascinating part. I think you've developed something that is actually a format, but actually works wherever you are. Are there certain areas of the country that this has started to work in the best, or is this actually plug and play for any state?
It is plug and play for any state, but I would say that there are states that are more difficult. States like Texas, right, that are more business friendly. You can go through a lot of the stuff much easier. But I mean, honestly, on the construction side of it, it's pretty similar across the country, right? Avoid big cities that are, crazy hard with permits, like even Austin or San Francisco, Denver, places like that. It's harder to get those deals done. But that's regardless if you're doing assisted living or not. On the actual like assisted living licensure side, you can do this in any state, right? Because I'm not talking about an REL, a little home conversion. We'll compete with the big facilities. So if you can build a 60 bed in any city, then you can also build a 16, right? Because we're not doing residential zoning. It might be commercial zoning or multifamily or mixed use or whatever it is. But there are states that are more difficult, and there are states that relatively pretty easy.
So I'm so interested in how do you actually market this both to the consumer and then also it sounds like you really are looking for, as you said, co-partners. So I'd
Yeah.
love to hear both sides of that. Like, how do you get people in on both sides of what you're doing?
Sure. So on the first side, we'll talk about is filling our beds, right? Our grandmas, and we, instead of calling them patients or residents, we call them grandmas and grandpas because it was
Oh,
actually literally my grandma was the first one to move into our first
oh,
assisted living.
nice.
Yeah, and so who we're looking for is again someone near end of life with a bigger problem to solve, either a cognitive problem, meaning they have dementia or Alzheimer's, or a higher level of care needs regarding their ADLs, their activities of daily living. It might be incontinence, it might be they can't walk anymore, two-person transfers, things like that.
Hmm.
So this marketing game that we play here is mostly a relationship game, right? It's not like AdWords, it's not, pay per click or direct mail or any of those other things that we may have done in the past.
Yeah,
It's a lot of just networking with the right people because you go through as a potential 85 to 95-year-old, you're going through this funnel of, you're moving from home to independent living, and you're not trying to spend 10 grand a month, right? You're trying to spend as little as can, you trying to get through the next 20 years, right? So you start with the lowest level of care, the lowest cost, right? From independent living to lighter levels of assisted living, and then to maybe end of life care and or memory care. And every time you decline more, it costs more money.
sure.
But every time you decline more, you are working with people in the industry that are saying, hey, here's mom's situation, right? She now has a new care plan. She needs to do medications this way, or now needs 24-hour care, or we need to move her from this place to that. And so there's always some type of healthcare professional who is changing a plan and then recommending the next plan. And with our niche at end of life, they've gone through 2 or 3 different sequences in the chain of events there, right? And so that's just opportunities to build these strategic relationships where most of our leads that come in, we spend $0 on advertising. It's mostly from people in the industry that are saying, hey, you know what? Again, like the industry is just full of really, really horrible care. So it's honestly really easy if you have a beautiful building and you provide great care. So from that perspective, you have like tons of these, here's 60 beds over here, here's 150 beds over here. They're known for terrible care, right? You can't keep great staff in a place like that.
No.
So when you have the hospice nurse, home health nurse, they go from facility to rehab to house. And they're, every week they're meeting with mom or daughter, whomever it is. Hey, you know what? It's time for the next thing. We become that next thing. And it's just really strategic relationships.
Yeah, and it just seems like what you do is you listen to what's going on and you can morph into what the next thing that is needed. Does that sound right?
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, because we're at the end of life, right? So there's nothing past us, right? Technically skilled nursing, but we can pretty much take 95% of all people at end of life.
Right. Right. And so then for the people who want to partner with you, that's such an interesting concept as well. I know it's a little bit different because I know we're talking financial more than emotional.
hmm
Um, but of course, it's intertwined, like what the benefits to the community or the benefits to the population that you're serving are still what they are. And yet you're giving people who are looking for some sort of investment a really strong
Yeah.
avenue. I mean, death and taxes, right? They're the things that never go away, sadly, but they are consistent. So, what does that look like for somebody who's looking to combine maybe the best of what they want to do with a more strategic and solid financial future?
Yeah. So I would say first off that primarily what we offer is a business opportunity.
Mm,
There is a real estate play. We build new construction. You're going to have a multi-million dollar exit on the real estate play, but that's not the primary objective. The way our preferred lenders look at it, the way we run the numbers, it's based on you're running an active company, right? Not like let's invest in apartment buildings in
yeah,
every single state and I'll have a property manager. You can do that. That's a different model than we do. But we're running an active business and we make consistently 40 grand a month from that, from each one of our mansions. And so you're able to look at it from that perspective. We're looking for somebody who is looking for an active role, right? They're going to be the head, the CEO. You get to a place where you're pretty passive in this. I work 2 to 4 hours a week at my assisted living role because of the deal structure and how we set things up with our team. We have high income, we can have higher staffing and hire the best people.
yeah,
But I think you I well, I think there's kind of couple different roles that I think make a great team to do this. And you don't have to be like just the one person who has it all together. I think there's kind of that business person, right? They're the numbers person, or perhaps they're a real estate background like myself. And you partner with someone, or a lot of times it's your spouse, right? That's a nurse or has some type of medical background, or even maybe took care of their own mom or grandma
yeah.
during that and has that kind of experience.
Feel, right? Yeah.
If you can bring on the business or real estate with the medical side, and technically what we do is non-medical, but it's still kind of providing that loving care aspect. And then the third part of this is the money person, right? You bring on a passive investor to sit in that seat. And again, for us and most of our partners, we go SBA 7A. And so
Mm,
they lend, up to 90% of all the funds, right? The real estate side and the operation side. So there's not a huge amount of capital that's required. You can bring on a partner and keep them under that 20% where they don't have to personally guarantee. And then, so honestly, I see a lot of times a successful team is a husband and wife with one medical, one business experience, and they're able to bring on an investor partner and put the whole team together.
wow, that is really amazing. I love that. And so, what is sort of, I mean, do people have to have that medical background? Because, I mean, for a lot of people that I've worked with, they're investors. And I know what you mean because you're saying it's not passive. They have to be devoted to the cause, right? But
Right.
can they have more than one? So is it just a sort of a one-off and then it becomes a business? or is it something people can grow as a community or as several in their area?
So first question is no, it's not necessary to have medical experience. I had no medical experience. My wife had none. And I would say business experience is more important than the medical side, because honestly, the first thing we did is we just hired a big box director, right? They had 20 years experience. We gave them a salary and then put them on a profit sharing agreement, right? And it's like, okay, now they're committed. Let's get this thing. And then over the next year or two, we learned all of the stuff, right? And we became experts in that, but we didn't start there. And so it's much easier to learn the medical side because again, you're not a doctor. You're going to have nurses and hospice and doctors come in, right? You're just more of an organizer of this kind of stuff. And you got to learn all the lingo and stuff. That is much easier than learning business and marketing and cash flow and
Absolutely.
managing your team and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you can definitely do it without that experience.
Now, with the balance of the real estate, does it help, I guess, if people are aware of what their real estate market is and what their opportunities are to buy? Do they buy land generally, or will they buy
Mhm.
something that already is standing and maybe convert it? I know not into a single home, but maybe add on, or if it's a large home kind of thing.
It is possible to do that. Path of least resistance is just buying vacant land.
Mm,
1 acre is a good minimum amount to put one of our mansions on it. And so a lot of our partners will go and they'll buy, 3 to 5 acres and they'll build number one and then cash out refinance in a couple years, use that equity that they have, do a new SBA 7A loan, not need any additional capital for the second one, and then continue to build in phases. And you build out a neighborhood of 2 or 3 or 4 of these things. You get to a place where you have 80 beds in your city there,
yeah.
and maybe it's a 10-year play, right? You go and you exit and you sell to some big corporate or REIT or whatever it is. Or you could just keep it and you can rent it out on a triple net.
That's amazing. Can you actually explain to people who may not do a lot of investing what triple net is? Because that's one of those catchphrases that we know because we've done it, but
Sure.
not everybody understands that there's a real benefit to that.
Yeah. So to put it in context of what we're talking about in the conversation, right? You have a building and it's real property. You have this thing. You can do one of two things. You can run your operations company from it, right? We've had this conversation today. That's what our context has been. Or
Yeah.
the opposite, you build the building and then you take it and you rent the building to an operations company. And there's local
Huh.
operations companies and there's also national ones that they don't own any real estate. You'll see them a lot of times in the big facilities with the 60 beds and those. They don't own that building. They go and they rent on a triple net, meaning that they're paying the rent, they're also paying the taxes, the insurance, and the maintenance, right? So you, as the owner of the building, you're getting a rent per square foot amount, plus getting reimbursed for all of those other costs. And then they're usually a long-term lease, 10 or 20 years on these things. And it's actually, if you go on LoopNet and you just search assisted living, you'll see it, right? It'll say, hey, we're selling this at a 7 cap on a triple net, and there's 17 years left of this 20-year lease. And so when you go to, if you want to exit the deal, you can sell the real estate and the business together, or you can look at it from the other perspective and say, you know what, I just want to build this and I'm going to find someone to lease this building on a triple net, and then I'm going to list it for sale at a certain cap rate, more competitive to the market. And actually, a lot of times you get a higher price if you go that way.
That's amazing. And I guess what my thing would be, Brett, I would wonder if you were building this as an individual and you were doing really well with it, but then you were going to
Mhm.
sell it. How does it stay what you've created? Because it sounds like you've kind of melded the best of the
Mhm.
possibilities for people to have at the end of their life with having a business for the people that own and do the work for it. How does that stay true to the vision?
That's the hardest part.
Mm.
And this is why that I have gone and grown my company, running the operations company instead of staying strictly on the real estate side, building them, bringing in a fund, building a whole bunch of them, renting them, because most of those fail. And you go and you see, right, you're going to rent to some big corporate. They don't care about their people. They don't care about their caregivers. And therefore, their caregivers treat their grandmas like crap. And then they don't fill their beds. They have 60% occupancy. They make no money. And then all of a sudden, like you see the business for sale at a foreclosure, or you see them constantly turning. And there's a beautiful building, 3 years old, but they've switched like 3 different times with 3 different operations companies because they can't fill the beds because they have terrible care. And I think that's just a poor deal structure.
Mm.
And so I really like to do it the way that I'm doing it. And honestly, if I knew a way to stay on the real estate side and scale it and in a way where, that wasn't the chain reaction, then I would do it. But I don't have a solution for that.
That's so interesting, though. But you can see where I'm saying, like, you really want to stay with the integrity of the intent, which is so
Mhm.
unusual, but also amazing. I mean, where do you work with other just outside of what you do? Do you talk to other um, entrepreneurs in the country who are thinking outside the box? And what are they like? What is the response to people who are outside what you're doing looking in? Because it's got to be very exciting.
Yeah, everyone's really excited. I think you couple this with the timing of baby boomers and
Mm,
especially post COVID, where like big facilities were like, oh, okay, yeah, but now it's like, no, the people are repulsed, right? By I will not go with the other 100 people. And then just the way staffing is going, staffing's been the biggest change in the last couple of years. Where trying to get anybody to work hard
yeah,
and show up it's a 24/7 business. On Christmas, I have staff there every single day, right? Like it is a hard industry and
sure.
it's been
Have to.
really, really concentrated on how difficult it is in this specific niche. So I think it shows the opportunity moving away from bigger corporate towards even the smaller ones, but I think those still struggle. But this medium-sized model that we have.
Yeah, yeah. It's so interesting to me. I love this. So, what do you guys want to see happen next? What's your growth model, or what do you see maybe in the next few years that's going to be either new, different, or extended?
We're in about 12 states right now. Most of our partners are in Texas, right? Because we're in Texas and but we're expanding out. So that's really our next few years is going in, learning every single state by state, the different nuances, the different licensures, and finding the best markets. And really our product is more of an upscale luxury product.
Mm.
And so, therefore, from that perspective, going and finding in every state, here are the awesome pockets where we can do this, where there is the population that has the income and there's the right amount of seniors there and all that kind of stuff.
I'm actually curious when you said that, if I can just go for one question just out of curiosity, is when you said you find a pocket, what does that
Mhm.
do? Because is it a commercial endeavor or does that ever get in the way because maybe in a certain area you can't build for that kind of institution or that kind of business?
That is city by city.
Okay.
So usually you can always do what we do in commercial, some kind of C1 zoning, but
Yeah.
it's city by city. A lot of times, like I've bought an agricultural land, right? And I was able to get that reclassified, no big deal. But sometimes it is a big deal, right?
Sure.
Or it's R4 that I've seen go through, or I've seen mixed use. Very rarely have I seen residential, but some cities will allow you to do residential up to 16 residents. So, I mean, that's kind of the start of our process as we're learning the market research. Where is the right population, and therefore, what in those cities, what can we do as far as zoning and other kind of due diligence questions?
Yeah. What are the opportunities? What, Brett,
Mhm.
is like the biggest challenge you see in terms of going forward?
Staffing is the hardest part of this business, and because honestly, like it's not a complicated thing that we do. You're essentially being a mom, right? And it's just incredible patience, incredible love, and it honestly it makes all the difference. I can tell you, you know, is put aside all the fancy things and the CRMs and all that kind of stuff. If you have a group of, they're usually female, young ladies as caregivers that have great hearts and are dependable and show up, you can have an ugly building and you can make sales. This industry is all based on reputation, and if you can get great people who genuinely want to care for people, then you can be successful. But to get great people, you need to pay them more than everyone else. So therefore, it's really a numbers game. How do I have a beautiful building so that I can charge higher income, so that I can have multiple managers and a chef and pay my caregivers well, and therefore work backwards.
I appreciate that because I think that people do not always understand how, when you're working in a service industry, being paid, the reality is you want to be appreciated and you want to know that the effort, and yet also you want to bring your heart to it. So I can
Mhm.
imagine that that's a really interesting combination. I haven't seen it in a lot of industries. So bravo to you guys for doing that. That's amazing. And so, let me know how we can share this information for anybody who either would love to have their parents or anybody they know involved, or if they're interested in your model, because your model seems like such a wonderful way to take so many of people's skill sets, especially if they've looked for a business that incorporates community, heart, care, all of those wonderful things, but they also want to make a business out of it. How do people
Yeah.
reach you for those two things?
So I'll give you a couple options here. You can hit our website, assistedlivingmansion.com.
Great.
There's lots of information about the niche and the opportunity, how this thing works. And then my podcast, Assisted Living Investing. And again, we get in the weeds. There's a lot of transparency. Again, I'm on YouTube as well. Here's my full numbers. Here's what everything looks like, right? Here's what construction looks like. Here's expenses. And you
Yeah.
want to see, like, because when I started learning about this, like I was just fluffed with a bunch of, numbers and like, oh, you'll make this and that. And I'm like, bro, I don't see any overtime or manager or any of that kind of stuff. Right. So I really am a big proponent of I'm a numbers guy. So here's the numbers, right? The math works. Just
Yeah.
just go and research it.
And drilling down to make sure you're incorporating all that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll make sure we have that in the notes. That is amazing. I really just want to applaud what you guys are doing. I know it's a business model and I can totally appreciate that, but I just want to thank you because I think that people forget that there are opportunities. They forget that there are niches. They forget that using something that they know or something they actually care about is a completely valid business strategy. And I love that. And do you get kudos for that from a lot of people? Like, I feel like that's the most amazing thing to highlight for you guys. Do you get that kind of coverage?
We do actually. We get a lot of appreciation from actually our families, right? Being able to take care of them. We had our Thanksgiving party last week, and I mean, I don't know if you've experienced it personally, but when you get to taking care of your loved one at the end of life, it's so hard, and you can do it for a year or two, and then it's really difficult.
Yeah.
To be able to step in and fill that role and solve that problem for people is really, really rewarding.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. And also most of the people who deal with it, right? It was always explained as the sandwich generation, but that you're dealing with older parents, but also younger children. So you're right in the middle. And to have somebody else help you with that in a
Yeah.
really cohesive and meaningful way is outstanding. So that is just, it's so interesting. And I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for explaining what you do. I
You
really
are welcome.
appreciate you being here, Brett. This is great.
Yeah, it was awesome. Appreciate you having me on.
Well, thanks so much to my guest, Brett. If you enjoyed this episode, listen, like, share it with your friends, family, colleagues. We really appreciate you taking a look at it and sharing it also with people who may be interested in the subject or in a new business. From our studio to your success, I'm Kat Timpson. Thanks so much for joining us on the Icons of Real Estate podcast. Take care.